Ever get that feeling?
Yeah.
Like there's maybe a secret language to getting what you want.
Uh-huh.
Whether it's, understanding people better or just making progress on a big goal.
Yeah, like everyone else got the rule book except you.
Exactly, like you're just fumbling through. Well, today we're diving into some insights that might just be that missing rule book.
Welcome to the deep dive. We are plunging into the work of Robert Greene. You probably know him from books like The Laws of Human Nature, The 48 Laws of Power,
Right.
and we're drawing from a specific, really compelling conversation he had on The Diary of a CEO. The episode's called The Manipulation Expert. You're being manipulated. Use jealousy to manipulate people. Robert Greene. Quite a title.
It really is. And for you, the learner, our mission today is pretty straightforward.
Hmm.
Pull out the most potent, most practical wisdom from this interview.
Think of it like a shortcut.
Yeah, a shortcut to understanding Greene's core ideas, about human nature, strategy, personal growth.
And how you can actually use these insights in your relationships, for your ambitions, even just understanding yourself better.
Right, without feeling like you just swallowed a textbook. Okay, so let's unpack this. Greene kicks things off pointing out something, well, kind of counterintuitive about our modern world.
It's interesting, yeah. He observes that even with all our amazing technology and being constantly connected, many of us have this significant blind spot.
A blind spot.
When it comes to dealing effectively with other people, it's almost a paradox, isn't it? We're more connected, technically, than ever,
What?
but our fundamental human skills, they seem to be, well, fading, atrophying.
It rings true, though. You'd think all this online chat would make us social wizards, but Greene suggests maybe the opposite is happening.
Exactly. He argues that less real-world face-to-face time is actually eroding our ability to read those subtle cues to connect authentically.
And the consequences.
Yeah.
He lays them out pretty starkly.
Yeah, if you think about it, misreading people can lead to some really painful stuff, like being manipulated and not even seeing it.
Ouch.
Or getting hurt emotionally, unnecessarily, just general confusion in how we interact. Greene really believes our screen time is degrading crucial skills.
Like empathy.
Empathy, truly listening, reading nonverbal cues, all those things.
Okay, so if we admit, maybe, we have this blind spot,
Yeah.
where do we even start trying to fix it? How do we get better people skills?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And Greene's first answer, it might sting a little, it's self-awareness.
Okay.
He basically argues the first, maybe the hardest step is just admitting to yourself, hey, maybe I'm not as good at this people stuff as I thought.
Right. We all like to think we're pretty savvy.
We do. We assume these skills are just innate. But Greene suggests, our perception of our own abilities here, it's often skewed.
Like thinking you're a great driver when you're maybe not.
Yeah,
Bit of an ego check.
totally.
But he doesn't just leave us there feeling bad about ourselves, right? He pushes us to look deeper.
Oh, absolutely. He really stresses the importance of a deep, honest look at our own nature. And that includes the stuff we'd rather not look at,
Like what?
like our own tendencies towards, say, narcissism, our irrational moments. He's quite open about it. He even shares his own experience, like wrestling with his own narcissistic traits while he was writing The Laws of Human Nature.
Wow. Okay. That makes it feel less theoretical.
It adds this layer of authenticity, doesn't it? He's not just pointing fingers. He's been through it.
So the author himself is grappling with the flaws he's writing about.
Yeah.
Man, powerful. And he also suggests looking back at our mistakes.
Yes, and what's interesting is how he reframes those past social blunders.
Instead of just cringing.
Exactly. Instead of just cringing or feeling shame, analyze them. He sees those past experiences, even the painful ones, as valuable data.
Data about what?
About our own weaknesses, our misunderstandings. They can actually fuel the motivation to improve.
Okay, so acknowledge shortcomings, look inward, learn from mistakes. Now, Greene goes into this really fascinating, maybe slightly uncomfortable area. Our dark side. The shadow self.
Yeah, this is pretty central to his view of psychology. He suggests everyone has this shadow side.
Everyone.
Everyone. It's like a collection of repressed emotions, desires, impulses, often stuff deemed socially unacceptable. Things we learn to kind of push down from a young age.
Like aggression, envy.
Those are great examples, yeah. Aggressive urges, feelings of envy.
It's like that image of a kid being totally unfiltered and the society starts saying, nope, Hide that part. That part's okay, but hide that.
That's a perfect analogy. But the thing is, those hidden parts don't just disappear, do they?
No, I guess not.
They get shoved into the unconscious, into the shadow. And the problem, because we're not aware of them, they can still wield a lot of power over our behavior.
How so?
They can manifest in ways we don't expect, like sudden bursts of anger or maybe passive-aggressive stuff, or just this constant low-level negativity you can't quite pin down.
Right. So the answer isn't to pretend it's not there or try to, like, surgically remove it. That sounds impossible anyway.
It is impossible and counterproductive. Green says the real power comes from acknowledging it, understanding it.
Okay, acknowledge and understand,
Yeah.
not eliminate.
Exactly. Trying to eradicate it is futile. Instead, become aware of those darker tendencies and then find constructive ways to channel that energy.
Channel it. How?
Well, he gives examples like maybe redirecting aggressive feelings into ambition, into drive, or using anger about injustice to fuel, positive action, activism.
That really shifts the perspective, doesn't it? Those bad parts aren't just bad. They're potential energy sources if we learn to harness them.
Precisely. Potential fuel. Okay, let's pivot slightly. Green also talks a lot about the danger of being defined by how others see us. Getting trapped.
Ah, the identity trap.
Yes, this is where his idea of recreating yourself is so important. He warns against getting stuck in the boxes others put you in, or even the boxes you put yourself in based on the past.
Just because you were the quiet one or whatever.
Right. Or the reliable one. Doesn't mean you have to stay that way forever.
He uses that analogy of personality as clay, right? Something we can keep reshaping.
It's a great analogy. Malleable, constantly evolving. And he walks the talk. He mentions his decision not to write 48 Laws of Power Part 2.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he chose to explore totally different themes instead. It's about not letting your past wins or other people's expectations dictate your future.
And he connects this to other people's stories, too.
He does. He mentions Andrew Huberman, the neuroscientist, who now has that huge podcast. Apparently, Huberman was inspired by Green's book Mastery to make a massive shift.
From academia to podcasting.
Yeah, leaving a really promising academic career. It just shows the power of realizing when your current path, even if it looks good on paper, isn't actually aligning with your inner calling, your potential.
So it sounds like tuning into our own internal signals is key, especially those nagging feelings of dissatisfaction or frustration.
Definitely. And crucially, not blaming everything else for that feeling.
Right. Looking inward first.
Looking inward at the root of the discontent. And Green makes this really strong link between mind and body here.
How so?
He suggests that unresolved frustrations, feeling stuck, that can actually show up physically as ailments, which just underlines how necessary it can be to find the fearlessness to make big changes.
Fearlessness.
Yeah.
That leads into this intense strategy he talks about, the death ground.
Yeah.
Sounds dramatic.
It is pretty intense. It's about committing fully to a new direction without a safety net. No plan B.
No backup plan at all.
Nope. He brings up a psychology study. Participants solving a puzzle. One group knew there was a snack nearby if they gave up a plan B. The other group, no snack.
And the no snack group did better.
Significantly better. More persistence, better performance. Apparently, removing the safety net forces you to focus all your energy and creativity on the main goal.
It makes sense. It taps into that primal survival instinct, maybe.
Yeah.
Where our ancestors had to solve the problem to survive. No alternatives.
Exactly that evolutionary angle. It sharpens the mind, fuels innovation when you need it to work.
So maybe we need to inject a bit more urgency, more challenge into our lives.
Well, finding that sweet spot. A challenge that stretches you, pushes you to grow, but isn't so overwhelming you just give up. That optimal level of difficulty.
Okay, let's shift gears again. Purpose. Green talks about false purpose versus true purpose. What's the distinction he's making there?
So Green sees our true purpose as something sort of inherent, almost like a destiny we need to uncover. It's not always obvious, though.
Right.
But humans, we have this deep need for meaning, for belonging. So if we don't connect with our authentic purpose, we often latch onto, false ones.
What counts as a false purpose?
Could be anything, really. Addiction, getting swept up in cult-like groups, maybe even rigid political ideologies. Anything that offers direction and community but isn't truly aligned with you. It fills a void, but superficially.
Just a substitute, then. And finding the genuine article, the true purpose, that makes a big difference.
Oh, huge. According to Green, it's transformative. When you're aligned with your true purpose, you operate with more skill, more fulfillment. There's this feeling he describes.
What feeling?
Like things just fall into place. almost effortlessly. Now, you still need dedication, hard work, obviously,
Of course.
but there's a synergy, a flow.
Like having an internal compass finally pointing true north. And he makes an interesting point about knowing what you don't want.
Yes, he really emphasizes that. Understanding what genuinely doesn't resonate with you can be a surprisingly good navigation tool.
How so?
It helps you steer clear of distractions that often look a lot like opportunities. He has a quote about that.
Oh, yeah.
That distractions often arrive dressed up as opportunities.
That's sharp. Especially today,
Yeah.
with endless possibilities flying at us.
Yeah.
So how do we get better at telling the difference? Genuine chance versus shiny distraction.
Experience, mainly. Green really stresses that. It's through trying things, sometimes getting it wrong, investing time in stuff that wasn't quite right.
Yeah.
That's how you develop the radar.
The radar to spot the real deal, and crucially, to say no to the rest.
Exactly. Learning to say no is key.
What about younger listeners? People in their 20s, maybe still figuring things out. Any specific advice there?
He suggests embracing exploration, adventure, but maybe with some intention behind it.
That just drifting.
Right. It's a time for experimenting, trying different fields, different roles, learning actual skills. He also notes that for many, the 30s become a time of reckoning.
Reckoning. Sounds serious.
Well, maybe consolidating those earlier experiences, focusing energy more deliberately. He points to Paul Graham, the Y Combinator founder, as someone who had all these diverse interests. Painting, philosophy, programming, before it all kind of coalesced later in his tech venture. It shows how varied experiences can eventually connect.
Okay, so we've dug into understanding ourselves. Now, Green flips the coin. Understanding others. He says a huge mistake we make is just taking people at face value, believing the mask.
Precisely. We tend to accept the social performance, right? The politeness, the smiles, the agreeable nods. We take it as the real deal.
When it might not be.
Often isn't, or at least isn't the whole story. Green insists we need to look behind the mask, understand the underlying motives, the real feelings.
And he points out some basic human tendencies that are almost always in play.
Yeah, like our deep desire to believe we're good people.
Okay?
And intelligent.
Yeah.
And in control. So naturally, anything that challenges those core beliefs, it's likely to trigger defensiveness, negative reactions.
Knowing that is pretty useful in itself when dealing with people.
Incredibly useful. And he goes into some less comfortable territory too, like envy. How understanding envy can actually be used for influence.
Yeah, how does that work?
Well, he notes how potent envy is, especially now with social media amplifying comparisons constantly.
Right.
So understanding that innate tendency to compare, it can be a tool, especially in things like marketing, publicity. If you create a sense that something is desired or valued by others...
Makes more people want it. Virality.
Exactly. It taps into that envy mechanism. Now, this next bit might make some people uneasy. He talks about lying being sort of necessary in social life.
Okay, unpack that. Is he saying we should all be deceptive?
Not exactly malicious deception. It's more about the performance aspect of being social, the strategic communication, the social graces, the polite fictions we all use to smooth things over, avoid needless conflict.
Okay, so like acting a bit.
Kind of. And he contrasts this with body language. He argues that while words can mislead, nonverbal cues often tell a truer story.
What specific cues does he focus on?
He mentions the eyes, very hard to fake genuine emotion there. The tone of voice also very difficult to fake convincingly, he believes. The difference between a real crinkly-eyed Duchenne smile and a forced social one, and those fleeting micro-expressions that can flash across someone's face, betraying their true feelings.
So pay attention to the whole picture, not just the words.
Absolutely. The nonverbal channel is critical. And related to this is the massive influence of the people we choose to spend time with.
The whole you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with idea.
Sort of, yeah. Green uses this metaphor of infection.
Infection.
Yeah,
Yeah.
how being around negative, dramatic, or just, emotionally draining people can literally infect your own mindset, drain your energy.
And the opposite is true, too.
Exactly. Surrounding yourself with productive, positive, action-oriented folks, that can be contagious in a good way. It lifts you up.
He even warns about frenemies. People who seem like friends but are maybe driven by envy. What are the warning signs there?
One potential red flag he mentions is someone who rushes the friendship, like super eager, overly enthusiastic, wants to be best friends overnight.
Okay. Why is that a red flag?
He suggests it can sometimes mask underlying envy, and these types might engage in subtle digs, little bits of sabotage, all while keeping up that friendly front.
Tricky.
Yeah.
And how do we handle it when maybe a real friendship sours because circumstances change? One person becomes successful, the other feels left behind.
Yeah, that's tough. Green brings up Schadenfreude, that secret pleasure in others' misfortunes, and its opposite, Mitfreud genuinely feeling happy for others' success.
Freud. I like that.
It's a great concept. He acknowledges envy is common, especially when friends' paths diverge. The key, he says, is being honest with yourself if you feel envy, and then consciously choosing to cultivate Mitfreud. Make an effort to celebrate their wins, even if it feels a bit forced at first.
It takes real effort. Okay, let's talk about the book that probably gets the most reaction.
Yes.
The 48 Laws of Power. Why does it seem to push so many buttons?
Well, Green himself acknowledges that. A lot of people see it purely as a handbook for manipulation, for unethical power grabs.
And that reaction is understandable, right?
Completely.
Okay.
Especially if you've been on the receiving end of those kinds of tactics.
Yeah.
But Green argues it's not just about using the laws, it can also be defensive.
How so? Defensive.
By understanding the power dynamics, the strategies others might use against you, you're better equipped to recognize them and protect yourself. Knowledge as defense.
And he also notes it resonated differently with certain groups.
Yes, he mentions it got a very positive reception in some circles, like the hip-hop industry, for example.
Why there specifically?
He suggests it's because people in those environments often have a more, shall we say, pragmatic or realistic view of power and human nature based on their lived experiences. They saw the book less as a manual for being ruthless and more as just, reflecting the way things often are.
A mirror to reality rather than a prescription. Interesting. Okay, broadening out again. He mentions a conversation with a CIA agent about equality, about how it seems almost impossible in human affairs.
Yeah, he recounts that. The agent's observation was about the seemingly inherent tendency towards hierarchy in human groups.
So Green agrees. No equality possible.
Not quite. He acknowledges the hierarchy thing, but proposes a different kind of equality. It's the equal potential for everyone to achieve their own unique form of greatness, to fulfill their destiny.
Regardless of their position in a hierarchy.
Exactly. He uses Temple Grandin as a powerful example, someone who overcame huge challenges with autism to become this leading figure in animal science, realizing her unique potential against the odds.
So it's not about equal outcomes, but equal potential for mastery and meaning in your own sphere. He used that example of a tile worker too, right?
He did. A tile worker whose incredible dedication and skill turned his job into an art form. He probably wouldn't become famous or rich.
But he achieved mastery, subjective greatness.
Exactly. Greatness isn't just about fame or fortune. It's in the commitment, the care, the finding of purpose in whatever engages you deeply.
That feels like a really important message today, with social media constantly tempting us to compare ourselves and feel inadequate.
It really is. That constant comparison trap can lead to deferring happiness indefinitely, always chasing the next external validation.
It's about finding that balance then, between ambition and contentment, like the tile worker versus, say, a Steve Jobs.
Right, he contrasts those two. The core message seems to be, find what you genuinely love. Find purpose and challenge in it. Don't just be driven by wanting more external stuff.
Now, Green introduces another powerful, maybe sobering motivator. Death awareness. His own stroke seems to have really impacted his view on this.
Definitely. He talks about that near-death experience as a major wake-up call, a catalyst.
How did it change things for him?
He actually incorporated a new practice, a morning meditation where he contemplates the possibility that this could be his last day.
Oh, wow. That's intense.
It is, but he says it helps him focus intensely on what truly matters right now in the present. He feels it's given him a much deeper appreciation for things he used to take for granted.
Like health, relationship.
Exactly. That heightened awareness of how fragile, how ephemeral life is,
Yeah.
it breeds appreciation.
It's a stark reminder not to put off what's really important. He also mentioned a Stoic idea, amor fati.
Yes, amor fati, love of fate. It's about accepting everything that's happened in your life, the good, the bad, all of it, without regret, without dwelling on what ifs.
Accepting the whole package.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
He acknowledges life's unpredictability. He even tells this anecdote about a seemingly random wasp sting that might have triggered his stroke.
Whoa.
It just illustrates how little control we sometimes have over external events. It brings it back to the Stoic focus. Control your response, because you can't always control what happens to you.
That leads nicely into his current project, a book called The Sublime. He said he'd been thinking about it for ages.
Yeah, apparently the idea has been brewing for like 2 decades, but he kept putting it on hold for other books.
And his stroke actually changed the book's direction.
Interestingly, yes. He said his health challenges meant he couldn't do the kind of adventurous, far-flung research he'd originally planned. So instead,
Good.
he started finding the sublime closer to home, in the everyday, in the beauty and wonder right around him.
He gave some cool examples, like his idea of the daemon, that inner guiding spirit, and talking about communicating with his cat, with birds.
Right. It sounds like the book became a way to find awe and wonder within his current limitations. A way to cope, maybe even avoid depression, by shifting focus.
Finding the extraordinary in the ordinary.
That's a great way to put it. Discovering the profound mystery that's always around us, if we just look.
Okay, so as we start to bring this deep dive together, is there a unifying thread running through all of Green's work? From power to human nature to the sublime.
I think there is. As he puts it, it's really about understanding the reality of life, the reality of human nature, without illusions.
Stripping away the wishful thinking.
Exactly. His books try to give you that clear-eyed view of how the world and people actually operate. He suggests that facing this reality, even the harsh parts, is ultimately liberating. It lets you engage more effectively instead of being constantly tripped up by false hopes or naive assumptions.
He uses that analogy of life being like a strategic game, doesn't he? Inspired by Saul Alinsky.
Yes, the idea that you need to understand the rules of the game to play it well, to navigate it, to influence outcomes. And he contrasts strategy with, well, stupidity.
Stupidity
Meaning acting ineffectively because you're driven purely by emotion, not by reason, thought, or strategy, causing damage through impulsive, unstrategic actions.
which highlights how crucial emotional control is for any kind of effective strategy.
Absolutely vital. He even shares some of his own techniques for that. Things like consciously pausing before reacting in heated moments, using meditation to cultivate a bit of detachment, allowing for more rational decisions.
Makes sense. Finally, he did touch on current politics. He acknowledged his own bias first.
Yeah, he's upfront about being liberal, but his main concern politically seemed to be the lack of long-term vision.
Why does he think that is?
He blames the short election cycles. Politicians are constantly focused on the next election, the next poll. It discourages long-term planning. He drew a parallel to publicly traded companies obsessed with quarterly reports instead of long-term health.
Interesting comparison.
He also noted how traditional party loyalty seems weaker now, the electorate more volatile, and he thinks both parties often struggle to articulate a really clear, compelling vision that connects emotionally.
But he did acknowledge Trump's ability to do that.
Yes, he pointed out Trump's success in forging that kind of emotional connection with his base, even while disagreeing with his politics fundamentally. It was more an observation about communication style.
Okay, so wrapping this all up for you, the learner, what are the big takeaways from this dive into Robert Greene's insights?
Well, first, I'd say it's the power of getting real about human nature, starting with yourself honestly looking at your own biases, your shadow side. It's not just theory, it's a core life skill.
Right.
And second, don't be afraid to question your identity, the one you've built, the one others project onto you. Embrace that idea of yourself as clay. Listen to your discontent. It might be guiding you somewhere more authentic.
Good one, Ben.
Third, become a better observer of human interaction. Look past the masks. Understand the nonverbal cues. And recognize that strategic thinking, combined with emotional intelligence, isn't manipulation. It's often just effective living.
Excellent summary. And for that final point of reflection, the learner. Maybe consider this: what false purposes, big or small, might be pulling you off course right now. And what's one small, maybe slightly scary step you could take this week towards a path that feels more genuinely you.
Something to chew on.
Definitely. That brings us to the end of this deep dive. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, keep learning.